The alarms had already stopped, and that silence was the worst sound I had ever heard. My name is Daniel, and 3 years ago I became the only human inside the royal nursery of House Velmara, a family that ruled half a star system and had never once, in 400 years, trusted an outsider near their children. I was not a soldier. I was not a guard. I was the quiet man who read bedtime stories in a language that was not my own and learned which floor panels creaked and which ones did not. That knowledge was about to matter more than anything I had ever learned before. The two children, Nia and Corin, were hiding behind me before I even told them to move. We had practiced this, not because I believed it would ever happen, but because a promise to the Queen is not something you make lightly. She had looked me in the eyes on my very first day and said, "Protect them as if they were your own blood," and I had said yes without hesitation. Now her palace was under attack, and she was 3 systems away, trying to stop a war with words instead of weapons. Footsteps echoed down the long stone corridor outside the nursery, heavy, deliberate, unafraid. Whoever they were, they believed no one here could stop them. After all, I was just the human, the servant, the one species in this entire court that nobody thought worth arming. They were wrong, and they were about to learn why. I pulled the two children gently toward the far wall, behind a thick stone pillar that had survived 100 years of storms on this world. Nia was shaking. Corin, older by 2 years, was trying very hard not to show fear, the way children do when they think bravery means silence. I knelt down so we were eye to eye. "Listen to me," I said. "I am not going to let anything happen to you. Not tonight. Not ever. You are going to stay right here and you are going to trust me, the same way you trusted me every single night I told you a story before bed." Corin nodded first, then Nia. Their small hands gripped the fabric of my sleeve, and I felt the full weight of what I had promised settle onto my shoulders. The door at the end of the hallway groaned, metal bending under pressure it was never built to survive. Someone was cutting through it with a plasma torch, patient and confident, like a person opening a gift they already knew was theirs. I looked around the room one more time. A nursery is not built for defense. It has soft furniture, low shelves, painted walls with pictures of moons and stars. But I had spent 3 years memorizing every inch of this place, not because I expected danger, but because it was simply the kind of person I am. I like knowing my surroundings. I like being prepared for things that probably will never happen. Tonight, that habit was going to save 2 lives. There was a maintenance vent behind the reading shelf, wide enough for a small body to crawl through, connecting to the old servant stairwell that led down toward the kitchens. It had been sealed for years, forgotten by everyone except me, because I was the one who used it to sneak warm bread up to the children after their bedtime, back when things were simple and quiet. I pulled the shelf aside as gently as I could, careful not to make noise, and opened the vent. "This is our way out," I whispered, "but not yet, not until I know it is safe." The nursery door finally gave way with a heavy metallic groan. 3 figures stepped through the smoke, tall and armored, moving with the calm confidence of people who had planned every second of this night. They scanned the room, weapons raised, searching for the children they had come for. They did not expect to find me standing in front of the pillar, arms open, blocking their view of the small space behind me. One of them laughed, low and mocking. A human guarding royal children. How amusing. I did not answer with words. I answered by grabbing the nearby lantern stand, heavy iron built to survive centuries, and swinging it hard enough to knock the closest attacker off balance and into the wall. It was not a fight I was trained for. It was a fight born from pure determination and the absolute refusal to let 2 children lose everything in one single night. The second attacker lunged toward me, and I stepped to the side at the last moment, letting his own momentum carry him past me and straight into the same wall his companion had just hit. I grabbed his weapon before he could recover and threw it through the open vent, far out of reach. The third one hesitated, just for a moment, just long enough for me to understand that fear works both ways. He had expected an easy night. He had not expected someone willing to stand completely still in the middle of danger and refuse to move. I used that hesitation. I pushed forward, using every bit of strength I had, and forced him back through the broken doorway, out into the corridor, away from the children behind me. More voices echoed from deeper within the palace. This was not over. It had barely started. I turned back to Nia and Corin, both frozen in place, eyes wide with a fear no child should ever have to feel. I kept my voice steady, even though my hands were not. "We are moving now," I said. "Stay close. Stay quiet. I will not let go of you." We crawled through the vent together, the metal cold beneath our hands, distant shouting echoing behind us like thunder that never quite arrives. The servants' stairwell was dark, but I knew every step of it by memory, every place where the wood might creak, every turn that led toward safety instead of danger. Halfway down, Nia stumbled, and I caught her before she could fall, holding her steady, whispering that everything was going to be fine, even though I had no way of knowing if that was true. We reached the lower kitchen just as the entire palace shook with the force of something enormous arriving outside. For a moment, I thought the ceiling itself might come down on us. Then I heard it, a voice loud enough to travel through stone, filled with a fury I had never heard before. The Queen had returned. She had been 3 systems away only hours earlier, and yet here she was, moving through her own burning palace like a storm that refused to be stopped by anything standing in its path. I had seen her calm in council meetings, patient with diplomats, gentle with her children at bedtime. I had never seen her like this, and for the first time I understood exactly how she had built an empire that lasted 400 years. I led the children up through the kitchen entrance, straight into her path, and the moment her eyes found them, something in her posture changed completely. The fury did not disappear, but it shifted, redirected entirely toward anyone who had dared to threaten what stood in front of her now. "They are safe," I said quickly, before she could ask. She looked at me the way she had never looked at me before, not as a servant, not as an outsider, but as someone who had done exactly what she had asked on my very first day, 3 years ago, without hesitation and without complaint. "You kept your promise," she said quietly. "I told you I would," I answered. The rest of the night moved quickly. Palace guards finally arrived, working together with the Queen to secure every hallway, every entrance, every hidden passage the attackers had used to slip inside. By the time the sun rose over the towers the next morning, the danger had completely passed, and the palace, though damaged, still stood. Nia and Corin refused to leave my side for hours afterward, sitting close to me in the great hall while healers checked on everyone who had been inside during the attack. I did not mind. I understood, better than most, what it meant to feel safe again after a night like that. Later that day, the Queen called me into the throne room, still scorched from the fighting, its tall windows letting in soft morning light. Nobles from every corner of her court stood along the walls, watching quietly as she asked me to step forward. For 400 years, no outsider has ever been trusted with the protection of this family, she said, her voice carrying easily through the silent hall. Tonight, that changed. She placed her hand gently on my shoulder, a gesture I later learned was reserved only for the highest members of her personal guard. "From this day forward, you will stand beside my children not as a servant, but as their protector, sworn and recognized by this entire house." Nobody in that hall laughed. Nobody whispered. For the first time since I had arrived on this world, I felt like I truly belonged. I think about that night often, standing now at doors twice my height, watching over 2 children who once gripped my sleeve in fear and now greet me every morning with bright, easy smiles. I was never the strongest person in that palace. I did not have claws or speed, or any of the natural gifts that made the other guards so formidable. What I had was something simpler, something I had carried with me long before I ever set foot on this world. I had the willingness to stand still when everything around me told me to run, and the quiet certainty that some promises are worth keeping no matter what stands in the way. That is the thing people often forget about someone who truly cares. We do not protect the people we love because we are the strongest in the room. We protect them because we chose to stay.